Happy May the 4th, folks. We got another very special review here today. Something non-Marvel related for the first time in a while. We've been talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier for the last couple of months. WandaVision. We haven't talked about The Mandalorian in a few months since it ended in late December. But we're talking about this a little bit late since it is May and not December. But it is timely nonetheless with it being May the 4th, of course. And Chris, you're back here. Chris Mueller, going to help me break down the Star Wars holiday special that you told me to watch a couple of months ago. I did watch it at your request, and I was very, I think we talked about it, I think, a little bit over DM at the time, but we're going to talk about it a little more extensively today, and it was very interesting nonetheless. But Chris, May the 4th be with you, my man. Welcome to the show again, and welcome to, I'm very excited to be talking about this special with you today, I guess.
Yeah, this is something else. Like, the fact that this exists at all is just hilarious. But just the story behind it and all the reactions since this movie came out, like from George Lucas and all the actors, make it so much funnier to me when I watch it, knowing like just how miserable all of them were.
Yeah, no, like I didn't really know too much about this honestly until recently until I watched it. I had heard about it. I had seen people talk about it. Obviously, it's currently available. I don't think it's in its entirety on YouTube. Is that where you watched it too, at the hour and a half version on YouTube?
As far as I know, that's the only place you can get it without having to download a file.
Mm-hmm.
And even that is shocking to me, that nobody with any of the rights has tried to strike it off YouTube.
Yeah, I know, that's surprising. I had seen in the comments section, which is hilarious. They were like, I guess if they were to take it off YouTube, if Disney were to take it off YouTube, then it would show that it was canon. So they don't want to actually acknowledge it, and they don't want to acknowledge that it's a canon movie, which I guess it's not, right, officially?
No, they don't consider this canon, even though they have brought elements of this into other things. Like, some of the books have mentioned Chewie's son, Lumpy, and then apparently, what was it, the Lego Star Wars holiday special that they came out with back in December, that's the same holiday, Life Day.
Yeah, and it came out on the same day, November 17th, but that was another thing I didn't really know about the special either. Again, I had done more research upon seeing it just because I was so intrigued at that point as to what the lore was behind this movie. The fact that it came out in 78, which I thought it came out after the original saga in like the mid-80s, but no, this came out within a year of the original Star Wars movie in 77, which I could not believe when I found that out.
So I read up on this, and apparently what happened was Lucas had said that he wanted to keep the memory of Star Wars, but I don't understand if that was his logic, like why he would just give up creative control for this one TV special. It seems like he had no say in any of this.
Yeah, his name is... it's crazy because you watch this movie and it has nothing, not nothing to do with Star Wars at all, but you would never know that it was a Star Wars production.
No, definitely not. I mean, it looks horrible. Like, I mean, when you... First of all, I love the fact that the YouTube video opens with some, like, local TV guy being like, this week's episode of Wonder Woman and Hulk be seen. And it's like... First of all, the fact that a DC and a Marvel show were back-to-back on a network back then is hilarious, because you never see those two properties on the same network these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. But yeah, just the fact that it aired... The fact that it's on YouTube in its original incarnation from, I think this aired on CBS or whatever it was, is kind of crazy that someone was able to record it through a VHS or whatever the hell it was back in 78. And we're talking, what, 40 years ago, right? 43 years ago at this point? I mean, it's almost 50 years old, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's nuts. And you can tell it's a pull off a VHS recording, just with how much it skips around and the poor quality of the transfer. But I mean, that's what TV looked like back then too. Mm-hmm. So it was we're never going to see HD 4K release of this. Like, I don't even think Disney wants to acknowledge anything outside of that cartoon they put on Disney Plus.
Yeah, which it obviously paid homage to the original Star Wars special, the holiday special, and I don't know, the fact that it's just talked about so much and it's ingrained in the lore of Star Wars. I am a little surprised they haven't done more with it and they haven't tried to maybe not market it, but put it on the service or whatever, gain the rights to it. But maybe because it is so bad, they just want nothing to do with it. But yeah, I knew going into it when I first watched it, after you had mentioned it to me, how bad it was and what it was about and whatever. But you never really actually believe that until you watch it. And it really is like the first, 15 minutes would you say, or just like the dumb, I don't even know what you would call it. It's just Chewie's family and they're watching the stupid like music number and all this other shit. I'm like, what? At that point I was questioning what I was even watching and if I was watching the right video on YouTube.
Yeah, it was so strange. So I actually looked at the timestamp. A human does not speak in this until 12 minutes and 20 seconds. So for that entire time, it's just music and Wookiee noises. And that first opening image of like Chewie's house up in the trees, that's just a drawing. That's like not even a picture of real trees with a house inserted digitally or something. Like that's just somebody drew that background.
Yeah. It looks terrible.
And then later when you see Lumpy out there walking on the railing, you can tell it's like he's walking somewhere with a green screen, and then they just put that drawing in of the house behind him.
Yeah.
It was just so shoddily done. And I know, again, that's what they did with TV back then. The budget for a TV movie like this was a fraction of what they got to spend in the original movie. But yeah, it was so funny to me that it opens up and it's like, okay, so that's like just a drawing, and not even really a good drawing, because they used to put up like paintings as backgrounds in movies in the old days and they looked great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this was just terrible.
It was just awful. And I think the concept, honestly, when I had heard about it going in, that it would have to do with Chewbacca's family, I was interested just because I love Chewbacca. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, but they completely butchered the entire thing. Like, I don't know if those characters could have come off any more annoying if they tried. Like, do you think this Star Wars special was the reason why they didn't delve deeper into Chewbacca's family history? I know we saw a lot more Wookiees in episode 3 many, many years later, but beyond that, I don't really think they acknowledge his family again after this.
I mean, I think there's a throwaway line about his family in Solo, but I don't know if it's meant to be like family in terms of his tribe, or like does he got a cousin down there in the mines with him? I don't know. But yeah, you had mentioned that thing with the little kid Lumpy watching the little hologram machine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The controls for that are literally just 2 tape recorders sitting side by side. Did you notice that? Like those old style, you could carry them around, you could use them to record or play tape recorder. It's just 2 of them shoved into that table. Nothing else has been done to dress them up to make them look futuristic.
Yeah. It just felt so lazy, like a lot of the things in this movie. Like, honestly, I was very confused for the better part of it, what it was even supposed to be about, because there was a lot going on, and they kind of switch between the characters a lot, and you see the main Star Wars characters. This is way more about the family than it is about the original characters, like, Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. They don't make... Honestly, it feels like their screen time is very limited, but that might have been just me.
No, it is, and I get the feeling that it's because they only had those actors for so many days.
Yeah, makes sense.
So they're like, okay, if we've got Harrison Ford for 3 days, so let's film the thing with him and Chewie in the ship, which we'll talk about how horrible the Millennium Falcon interior looks.
Yeah.
but like Carrie Fisher's just with C-3PO somewhere making a video call to them, and then Luke is somewhere else. And I don't know if you noticed this, Mark Hamill has like a ton of makeup on his face in this.
I didn't think it was him, to be honest with you. And they advertised, Mark Hamill's in it, so I'm like, that's got to be him, but it didn't even look like him.
It's because he had just been in a horrible car accident and undergone reconstructive surgery, and they had to make his face up so much to cover up some of the scars that were still showing.
Wow, I did not know that. That's crazy.
That's another reason why he looks kind of different between episode 4 and 5, because like it looks like he's aged, but what it is it's just he'd had a little bit of work done because of this car accident, so it kind of aged his face up like prematurely.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But yeah, so I think maybe that was a reason his time in it was so limited. But Yeah, I mean, this movie, and it bounces around to so many different random things. Like, at one point, we just see the mom Wookiee, Nala or Mala, whatever her name was,
Mala,
just
I think,
watching a random cooking show for like
yeah.
for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many segments in this movie where if you took it out, I don't think the plot would be any better or worse than it was originally. Like, I just there's so many segments in this movie where it's like it drags on and on and on. I mean, they have a couple of good cameos. Obviously, they have Art Carney in the movie and Beatrice Arthur, and I thought her musical number was great. But like, again, why do these segments drag on for as long as they do? Was this supposed to be like a variety show for Star Wars or something like that, like an SNL Star Wars? Because that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of weird variety stuff back then. I mean, especially in like the 50s and 60s, like prominent musicians would just have a variety show for a few years. Like Johnny Cash had a variety show.
Oh, okay,
and
interesting.
A lot of people forget that because there's very little film that still exists of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny how like that cooking show, you're watching this cook, and then the third and fourth arms come out, and it's clearly just a guy standing under the cape behind her with. With the same sleeves.
Yeah.
But they also, I don't know if you noticed this, they called the Wookiee planet Kazook in this movie, which I guess George Lucas hadn't officially decided on Kashyyyk.
Oh, okay. So it is the same planet, though. It's just they just call it something different here. That's all.
I guess. I mean, I guess they could always go back and say, oh, they have two planets that they're native to, and they're right next to each other, or something stupid. But yeah, it was Kazook. And then there's so after that scene, I think it jumps like almost right into the Falcon, and it's clearly them in like a shitty plywood set that has been built and put with like stickers on and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much less room for them to move around, and it looks like they're just sitting in car seats that have been detached and placed in the set. Like, it's not the cool pilot seats that you normally see. None of the stuff in the back that lights up is all lit up. It just looked so shoddy, and I have to imagine when Harrison Ford showed up to set and saw that, it was just like, oh, god damn it. It's going to be this, huh?
So he notoriously hates this special, right? Because I've seen like cast reactions to it and whatever. I think Mark Hamill might like talking about it, but does Harrison Ford even acknowledge that it exists?
Well, when he's asked about it, he'll pretty much be like, I don't really remember filming it. Like, it was only a couple of days and I was probably drunk. But the only person I know who's extensively talked about it is Carrie Fisher. Like, George Lucas legitimately tried to have all the master copies of this destroyed.
Wow.
Now, clearly he failed because we just got the cartoon on Disney Plus and it's actually in good condition and you can see everything. So,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Carrie Fisher talks about it. She doesn't talk fondly. It's not like she's happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she talks about it quite a bit. And I know that her thing was like, I'll only appear in this if I get to sing. But then the song they presented her with, I guess she hated. So like it ended up being kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense because, I don't know, there was just so much in this movie, including like her role, and you don't even really see the cast all together. Is there a scene at the end where they're all, I haven't seen in a little while, where they're all together? Because it feels like it takes 4/5 of the movie for the entire cast, whether it be Chewbacca's family or the original Star Wars people, to be in the same room at the same time, because it feels like we're looking at Chewbacca's family by themselves for the first 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah, there's one scene at the very end where it's Chewie, Luke, Leia, Han, and I don't think Art Carney's there, actually. So, like, Art Carney never appeared on screen with any of the main Star Wars cast, except for maybe Chewie for a second. But, so it almost seems like all that stuff was filmed totally separately. And then, but the weirdest part of the movie, we can't skip over this, is when the dad just like sits down and watches a weird Diane Carroll music video that's like semi-pornographic, just like in the middle of the living room, and it goes on for 5 fucking minutes. Like 5 full minutes. That's not even an exaggeration. That's how long that segment was. And like 5 minutes after that, they do a second musical performance where the little kid is watching a Jefferson Starship music video.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I don't know. It was all just so random and weird.
Was this supposed to be, like we just said, like a variety show, but just poorly done? Because this was terrible. Like, it seemed like every 5-minute sketch was supposed to be like a sketch or something like that, and it just wasn't entertaining or enjoyable or funny. It was just like, literally the special is 90 minutes. I honestly thought it took me around 3 hours to get this thing finished. Like, I think I had to keep start and stopping it just because it was just an absolute chore to sit through for most of it.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was definitely supposed to be like one of those variety things, but half of the transitions don't even make sense. So when we see B. Arthur, it's like an imperial message comes in, like, you are all required to watch this video. And then it's just a video of B. Arthur running her bar.
Yeah, what did that have to do with anything? Aside
Nothing.
from getting her number in there.
But, like, why would you be asking the imperial officers to watch this video? What is it providing in any way of an educational thing for them?
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be entertaining to them because it's like a required viewing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy who's like flirting with her throughout that whole thing,
Yeah.
super creepy, like obsessed with her when she clearly has no idea who he is.
Yeah.
That whole thing was just super awkward. But then, like, she sings her song, everybody leaves, and then at the end he's just behind the bar with flowers, and she's like, okay, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, it made no sense. And if that was supposed to be the same cantina from A New Hope, then they failed miserably because it looks nothing like it. Like, the bar is up against the wall instead of in the middle of the room. It's just 1,000 times smaller. But it's the same cantina band playing the same song. So I think it's supposed to be Mos Eisley Cantina. It just looks terrible.
Yeah, it looks awful. And between that and the Millennium Falcon, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, at this point, since it came out a year after the original movie, I mean, clearly they didn't film this at the same time, but why wouldn't they have? I mean, they were already probably, I assume at that point, in the process of filming the second movie, episode 5. So why wouldn't they have just filmed it on the set of one of the other movies just to make it easier so the set looked a lot better? Or do you think they just didn't give a shit because they knew it was airing on TV, so it wasn't really that much of a priority?
I mean, I'm not sure. I know that Star Wars filmed internationally, so for the TV thing, they were probably like, we're just going to do this in LA at one of our studios. Because, I mean, the stuff that takes place on Tatooine was all shot in, like, Tunisia.
Was it really?
Yeah, because it's like big sweeping deserts that they can go shoot in. In fact, the giant skeleton from the first Star Wars movie that C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of pass on their little journey.
Yeah.
It is still out there in the desert because, like, it made more sense to leave it there than to tear it down. So now it's kind of a tourist attraction.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many things in this movie that just don't make any sense at all. And the fact that it is available to watch on YouTube after all these years, I think is really telling as to how bad it actually is. Because if it was anything good, they probably would have ripped it off of YouTube by this point. Because it's probably been there at this point for a few years, I think. I don't know when it was uploaded exactly, but people have been able to watch this in some form or another for years. And again, the fact that it's not accessible anywhere might be a positive just because it really is just a waste of time. But we got to talk about this too. Obviously, probably the biggest talking point from it that we were discussing over DM before we started here, but the cartoon part of it. I mean, can you shine some light on, like, I think that's the best part about this special is the cartoon special, the introduction of Boba Fett. The only thing this thing is really known for, the only good thing that ever really kind of came out of the special. So what was the genesis of the cartoon portion of it? Why was there even a cartoon portion of it in there anyway? Because we see some of the same characters like Mark Hamill, or maybe it was Harrison Ford, that were both in the live action portion of this movie and then in the cartoon portion of the movie. Like, what was the whole point of that, and your thoughts on that part specifically?
Well, the cartoon was something like the kid booted up on his little view screen, so it almost seems like they're implying that somebody in the Star Wars universe made a cartoon about Han and Luke and all those people, and now Lumpy's watching it. So it's even weirder than just the cartoon on its own.
Okay. No, I was going to say, because I thought for a second it was the same, like it was happening in real time, but for whatever reason they were just in cartoon form. That's what really stood out to me as being odd.
Like, I'm not sure if they were implying that that was happening at the same time, but it seemed like the kid was watching it as like a video on his little thing.
No, that makes sense, yeah.
But it was definitely, it was cool. I liked the introduction of Boba Fett, and it's actually kind of funny. Apparently, there's debate on who did the voice for Boba Fett.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so some people think it's a guy named Don Franks, and then another guy named Gabriel Dell is also credited as possibly being it. But I think Franks, it's probably more likely him, because he returned to voice Boba Fett in the short-lived Star Wars Droids cartoon series about C-3PO and R2-D2. And then his daughter is a girl named Cree Summer, who has also voiced a lot of Star Wars characters in various cartoons and video games.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I mean, how has that not been confirmed? And again, this thing is almost 50 years old. How has nobody confirmed who the voice of the character actually was? Is just George Lucas not commenting on this, I guess? Or like, how does that happen?
I'm not sure. I tried to look at the credits as they were going by, because there's a little bit of credits at the end of that video, and I didn't see either of those names. I'm honestly not sure if either of them have ever confirmed or denied it. My guess is that both of them were hired to do work, and then just one of them was used.
That would make sense. I mean, are their voices so similar where you can't tell the difference between who it actually is? I mean, they must, right?
I don't know, but you know what? I almost thought that the guy voicing Boba Fett was the Imperial officer that Art Carney was talking to in his shop towards the beginning of the movie, because he sounded exactly the same.
I mean, what if it is? What if they just reused the same actor because they were on a tight budget? I mean, isn't that possible?
I honestly figured that's what it was, but that guy wasn't either of these dudes. So it was just him trying to sound menacing, like lower your voice and sound like you just smoked 5 packs of cigarettes. And he's, it's, I don't know. But that whole scene with him and Art Carney in the little shop, it's like, is this supposed to be funny? Like, I know Art Carney's a comedian, but nothing that's happening in front of me is funny.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great get for the movie, and you hear that he's in it. It's like, oh, this might be interesting. Like, they have, again, Beatrice Arthur, and they have him as well. They have a star-studded cast, but, like, I feel like aside from Arthur's musical number, like, they don't really utilize these people in any meaningful manner as to why they were, like, why were they even in there in the first place? You could have put anyone in that role, and I don't really think it would have made much of a difference if they were given the same material. It felt like they were completely wasted here.
Yeah, I mean, B. Arthur, I think it's because she can sing, and she's also just, at the time, was a big star. Same thing with Art Carney. It's like, let's get a famous comedian who everybody knows and loves. Well, there's this guy who's a curmudgeon, so... But, I mean, poor Art Carney having to say all this techno-babble, mumbo-jumbo, like, he has no idea what any of that stuff is.
Yeah.
Just like... He comes in and, like, I almost think that when he first walks into the Wookiee's house, I think he ad-libbed when he's like, here, I got the thing for the who's it, the what's it, the thingamabob, or whatever you call it, the evaporator. Yeah, that's it. I think he forgot what he was supposed to say, and he was just stalling for time. And then in the end, where they're like, well, we don't have the budget for a second take, so just keep going. But yeah, it was just so weird. And the whole thing with him, like, he's trying to help them with the Imperial soldiers. It's like, why are the Imperial soldiers even at that house?
Yeah.
Like, they just randomly chose that house, or did they know Chewie lived there and they know Chewie's a rebel? I mean, there was no explanation to it at all.
Yeah, that was just completely random. I mean, there's a lot of things in the film that don't make, or the special, whatever, that just don't make any sense at all. That was obviously an issue, just the fact that it was poorly just put together, and again, the shit that dragged, and it just wasn't entertaining. The lumpy segment at the beginning where, like you mentioned earlier, like where he's playing with, like, the action figures or whatever it is, he's watching them dance or whatever it is for like 5 minutes, really told me everything I needed to know about the special before I even finished it. But man, this was terrible. The cartoon part is obviously the best part. Did you watch that with the entire thing, or did you watch that separately? Like, did you say that was on Disney Plus, or can that be found on its own?
They just added a whole bunch of classic stuff like the Ewoks cartoon, the Droids cartoon, the original Clone Wars cartoon that kind of looks anime style, and then they added just the cartoon portion of the holiday special to Disney Plus.
That's weird. They would add just the cartoon special, but not the entire thing at that point.
I think it's because the cartoon is just like, with a cartoon, you can do so many more things. Like, oh, let's have these big crate dragon things, and we're introducing Boba Fett, and we're showing these ships that we don't have the budget to build in real life. So it made sense that the most actiony scenes in the movie were animated, because they weren't going to make those any other way. I mean, half the footage from the fight Han Solo was in was just recycled from one of the movies.
Was it really?
Yeah, like, you could tell they were just inserting random shots of TIE fighters and then cutting back to Harrison Ford, like, pretending to react to something.
That's funny. I didn't know that. I knew it looked familiar. I didn't know it was ripped from the movie, though. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, not only was it just critically shit, like, just obviously just completely panned, but we say that now, but 45 years ago, the taste was different. Was it even well received back in 1978, or was it so bad even then that that's why they never did anything else like this again after that?
It was horribly received back then. As far as I know, all of the different publications that covered Star Wars were, like, hyping this up ahead of time. Like, it's the first new Star Wars in a year, and, you know, we're going to get to see all these amazing characters continue their story. And then it comes out and it's like, nope, you're just going to watch a Wookiee cook for an hour and a half. Like,
yeah.
I mean, imagine being a kid sitting in front of the TV like, oh my God, it's new Star Wars. I can't believe this is so exciting. And then this is what you get.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised they never did another one, obviously, just given the ratings, if that was the case, even back then. But I'm seeing that they were supposed to do more. I mean, that would make sense, right? If this was just a critical success or did very well in the ratings, they probably would have done one kind of like what we had a few years ago in between episodes 7, 8, and 9, where they came out with Solo and they had Rogue One. Like, they had movies in between the major Star Wars movies. Do you think we probably would have had that as well? If the Star Wars holiday special went well, we would have had that with the original saga too?
Well, yes, because apparently this was supposed to be this was almost what they call a backdoor pilot, which is like, we're going to make a TV movie, but we actually want to turn it into a TV series. So if the movie does really well, we can pick it up as a series. What that series would be, I don't know, because you cannot make a whole series out of a Wookiee family. People go nuts just listening to those Wookiee screams for 60 minutes a week.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was probably the worst part, too. It was just so annoying. And again, if it was kept limited, I probably wouldn't have had as much of an issue with it. But that is literally all you hear, again, like you said earlier, for the first 12 minutes of this fucking thing. So that doesn't make it any better. But what's the lasting legacy of this special? I mean, the good, the bad, obviously I would say the good is the Boba Fett cartoon special. Is it good enough, you would say, to go back and watch it? Like, again, I've been a Star Wars fan for a long time, since I was a kid. I never saw this until just, like, literally around Christmas time, when we were going to talk about it then. Is it worth going out of your way if you are a Star Wars fan, or is it just, is it so bad that it's bad? Like, what would you say?
I think seeing this puts into perspective that people were overreacting to the most recent movies. Like, episode 8 is the worst thing ever. It's like, nope, go watch that holiday special. Episode 8 is Citizen Goddamn Kane compared to the Star Wars holiday special. Like, you know, here's the thing. Star Wars has a very weird, complicated legacy where, depending on who you talk to, there's more bad than good. Because the first movie is really only half good. Like, some of it's pretty crappy, especially when it comes to the acting. Like, some of Mark Hamill's early lines, like, I want to go get some power converters. It's like, you sound like a 12-year-old. But, episodes 5 and 6 were just so beloved. I mean, 5 more than 6. I think Return of the Jedi got a bad rap for a little while. I think people have come around to it more in recent years, but for a while, people actually considered that to be like the worst of the three, and I never understood that.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these movies are so polarizing that, again, like you said, it depends on who you talk to. Like, how many movies are actually good and how many movies are terrible. But this really is the bottom of the barrel. Like, this is the absolute lowest the bar can possibly be. But I guess.
Now,
Oh, go ahead.
I will say, there is actually worse Star Wars stuff out there than this, and it's the Ewok cartoon. The Ewok cartoon is, let's just make Care Bears with Ewoks.
And that's on Disney Plus now too. You said, right?
Yes, but I'm not joking. It's like the Ewoks just straight up talk English to each other, and it's like what little I remember about Care Bears from when I was a child, because I never actually watched it. I think it's just one of those things that like I knew about peripherally because other people were into it.
Yeah.
It's like it's basically that. It's like, oh my God, our friend is in trouble. Let's go save our friend, and then they save the friend, and everyone's happy. but yeah, this is like bad in a different way, because at least the Wookiee or the Ewok cartoon was designed to be cheesy for kids. This was like somebody thought this was going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know who. Like whoever wrote it was probably like, this is going to get me so many jobs in Hollywood, and it just ended up being terrible. Like here, actually, I have the Wikipedia page, so it says, my God, there's 5 credited writers on this thing.
Unbelievable. For this one, yeah, I'm looking at it now too. Yeah, it's terrible.
And two directors,
including one that's uncredited. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe he was like a second unit director and then he just ended up directing a bunch of scenes. But, oh my God.
Maybe he just wanted his name off of it because he knew it was so bad.
Maybe. I mean, what's really funny to me is that all the people who returned were actually the people in the suits too. Like Anthony Daniels really did return and play C-3PO. Peter Mayhew really was the guy in the Chewbacca thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you could have put any tall actor in the Chewbacca suit. So it's cool that they actually got Peter Mayhew, who I guess he's the only one who has good things to say about the experience making this. He's like, yeah, I enjoyed it. Like if you go back and watch interviews with people asking you about it, he's like, yeah, it was fine. It was fun, And
everyone else is shitting on it, yeah.
He just, like, he seems like the most easygoing guy out of all the Star Wars cast. I've seen interviews with him at conventions, and he just loves it. Like, he loves how into Star Wars people are. Yeah. And he especially loves the fact that he can walk around a convention center and only a few people are really going to know who he is. Because, like, his most famous role, you don't see his face. You see
exactly.
Chewbacca's face.
Yeah.
So he kind of gets to be incognito, whereas Mark Hamill walks on a Comic-Con floor and probably gets mobbed within seconds.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, I would never, honestly, I'm looking at his Wikipedia page right now, and I know I've seen him in other stuff before, but you would never know, like you said, if he's just walking around. Like, he gets to be this larger-than-life character without actually people knowing who he is, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I completely forgot that he passed away just a few years ago.
Yeah, and I think he was still alive when they started making Solo, and he like gave his blessing to whoever took over in the suit for that movie. He was like, I'm sure he'll do great, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Like, he was always very gracious about that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I'm surprised that it says that he was in Force Awakens, but he didn't do the other stuff. Like, unless there was a health issue or something, but like, why not retire before that? Like, why do that movie and then not the others? Like, that's what I was curious about.
It's possible that he was only doing some of the walking around, and like there's other stuntmen who were doing the action parts. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. But it's also one of those things where it's like Anthony Daniels returned for those movies, the C-3PO too, and he notoriously hates talking about Star Wars, but he keeps coming back for it when he gets asked.
I feel like he does more of this stuff than anyone else does, so that surprises me.
Yeah, he's technically the only character who's appeared in all 9 mainline movies.
Oh, really? I thought R2-D2 was in all the movies. Or are you talking about because the actor had passed away?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of the actor, Anthony Daniels, because Kenny Baker hasn't been in the R2-D2 thing for a while.
But yeah, Anthony Daniels, I mean, he's the only... I mean, R2-D2 has been in every movie, I think, but Daniels has been... So is he as C-3PO, but he's played his character in every single movie, right?
Yeah, like it was him in episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think for R2-D2, like even in one of the prequels, I think he wasn't even in it because it was just fully CGI, and there was... By that point, they had remote control robots, and the whole practice of sticking a little person inside a robot, like, that nowadays would be looked at as, like, cruel.
Yeah.
Like, there's stories where he's literally told this in interviews where he's like, yeah, one day on set, they forgot I was in the suit and went and had lunch, and I passed out from heat stroke.
Oh, my God. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know. The whole thing with, like, if anyone is ever upset that Kenny Baker's not in the suit, it's like, do you really think Kenny Baker wants to sit inside that thing?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Can you really blame him?
But here's the craziest thing about this is, like, this is a Star Wars property that was produced by 20th Century Fox for the ABC network. Mm-hmm. All of those things are now owned by Disney.
Wow.
Disney owns ABC. They bought that first, and then they bought Star Wars years ago, and now they just bought Fox within the last few years. And it's like, talk about being hilarious circumstances, because there's no way Disney doesn't own the complete rights to this thing now.
Do you think there will come a time where we are going to see it on Disney Plus at some point without... Again, we see it on YouTube, it has all the older commercials, which might actually be cooler, but do you think there will come a time where they will upload it? And honestly, it might, but in my personal opinion, I feel like if they were going to do that, they would have done it before the Lego Star Wars one came out a couple of months ago.
I think it's still a George Lucas doesn't want that thing in existence deal. Why it's still on YouTube, I'll never be able to figure out, because apparently it's been up for 5 years. Now, it may be a matter of them being like, this is like the only copy that's on YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. So maybe at that point, Disney's like, you know what? The guy who uploaded this isn't making money off of it. Just keep it up there, because anyone who wants it is going to find it from one of those illegal download sites anyway. Mm-hmm. But I do think at some point Disney will try and do something like, oh, we're releasing a HD remaster of the Star Wars Christmas special, 2 weeks after George Lucas dies.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be surprised.
Can't tell us not to,
Yeah.
But I guess, so originally there's like two stories to how this got made. So one story is George Lucas was already pretty much broke by the time and licensed this in order to help fund the making of Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. And then the other story is that ABC came to him and was like, hey, we want to do this. And he's like, well, that's a good idea, because people will still remember Star Wars. And then that way, when we come out with the sequel, people will be looking forward to it. But it's like, no, if anything, this probably turned a few people off from Star Wars.
I was going to say, how many people do you think are out there that watched that first movie, enjoyed it, saw this, were so turned off by it that they never watched another movie again in the Star Wars franchise?
I mean, I'm sure it's few and far between, because once a fan hears, oh, the new movie's amazing, they're going to go see it. But yeah, I have to imagine that The Empire Strikes Back, their opening weekend would have been bigger had this never existed.
Yeah, definitely. I think just, I honestly didn't even know this exists. I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't know that it came out in between the movies, because obviously there's no mention of it. And I don't know, the ending of that first film is just so great that it immediately segues right into that next one with episode 5. You would never think that anything like this was even necessary, or let alone even happen. So it does need to be seen to be believed. If you do want to waste 90 minutes of your time, I would say it. But like I said, if you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you've probably already seen this by now anyway, especially since it is available on YouTube. But if there's any day to watch it, I guess no better than May the 4th.
Oh, for sure. And, I actually heard that I think Mark Hamill might have a small role in the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that James Gunn is doing.
Holy shit, that would be amazing.
Now, there's for some reason, there was this string of interviews where Kevin Feige was being asked, like, are you ever going to cross over the Marvel and Star Wars universes? And he's like, no.
At least
so many people are going to be like, oh my God, he's going to try and bring Luke Skywalker. And it's like, that would make no sense. All of the stuff from Star Wars is supposed to be a long, long time ago.
Exactly.
Like, that's the whole conceit of the thing is that, like, for all we know, that galaxy that all that stuff took place in is fucking gone. Like, we're not supposed to know when it took place in relation to Earth because Earth is a non-factor.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently in one of the novels, they actually do go to Earth, and it's like prehistoric, ancient kind of at that point. So
interesting.
Yeah, but of course that's not considered canon.
No, yeah. And it never will.
Yeah, but I will say to anybody who's never seen it, like, if you're gonna watch this, watch it with somebody who's like, who you can joke around with, because the whole movie is gonna be a series of just like, what the hell is this moments? Like, because I can't tell you, the first time I saw this all the way through, it might have been this last year actually, because before that I had only been able to watch it in spurts because it was just so bad.
Yeah.
So when I finally watched it all the way through, I remember just like every 5 minutes I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Why is this happening now?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's amazing that back then, like, the divide between quality on television and movies was so massive. And nowadays you see these prestige TV shows that look as good as any movie.
Yeah, it's actually kind of amazing when you consider, I mean, I know it's a totally different thing, but like The Mandalorian is better than some of the movies, definitely. I mean, it's one of the best projects that Star Wars has ever done, and that's better than the movies, at least in recent years. So it is kind of crazy how the tide has turned with that stuff. And even Marvel, too. It seems like the shows are sometimes better than the movies, too, when the other, years ago, it would be the other way around.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Marvel and the Mandalorian stuff, the reason those are so good is because they're very character driven and not action driven.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at something like Game of Thrones, it's like that was about as cinematic as it could get, especially in the later seasons when they were just pumping money into that series.
Yeah, definitely.
But even going back to like Boardwalk Empire,
mm-hmm.
like that show was gorgeous because they remade the whole pier to look like period accurate, all the right clothes, all the right music, like everything was super detailed and it looked great. And so you just like, you bought like, okay, we're in the Prohibition period, like it looks real, it feels real, they're acting real. You just don't get that with some of these old TV movies and old TV shows, like especially like Wonder Woman and Hulk, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those have aged horribly, but people who loved them back then still love them because of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But you go back and watch it and it's like, oh man, they really were stretching for how to make these special effects work.
Yeah, I don't know if I could ever sit through one of those shows, like watch every episode or review it or whatever it might be in present day, unless you were watching it back then. But even stuff that I watched back when I was a kid, I mean, obviously it's different. I wasn't even born in 78, but like, even watching stuff from when you were a kid, it's just not the same 20, 30, 40 years later. So I don't know if I would advise that upon anyone, depending on what the show might be. But specifically stuff from that 70s, 80s, even early 90s period. There was some good shit, obviously, as far as shows are concerned, but the quality is, it's rough. And I think that's especially evident with a special like this.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to special effects, that stuff has been so refined that you can now do cinematic looking things on a TV budget. Like, I only watched the first few episodes of that Star Trek Discovery show, but it looked amazing. Like, all of the stuff, it just looked like as good as the J.J. Abrams movies.
Yeah.
So they can clearly do that now if they want to. And it sort of almost puts pressure on the TV industry because now you can't get away with something looking cheap and being like, oh, well, it's cheap because it's on television. Like, that's not an excuse anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not an excuse at all. I mean, they're pumping a lot of money into these shows, including the Marvel stuff. And with the amount of money and power that Disney has at this point, there really is no excuse if there is a misfire for whatever reason. But at least production-wise. Creatively, that's always, subjective. But, yeah, it's just amazing. And to think this is almost 45 years old is crazy. And, yeah, I think it's definitely worth checking out just to see how bad it is. But I agree with what you said earlier. Watching a movie like this, watching something bad will always make it better if you're watching it with someone else. If you're commiserating with someone else about how bad this is, then I think it will always make it more enjoyable.
Yeah, I will say that the Jefferson Starship thing, like, if you're a fan of that music, then you'll love that one segment because it's just so reminiscent of that time and the music videos that they were doing. Like, late 70s, early 80s was when everything was being synthesized and it all sounded futuristic, or at least they thought it did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you go from traditional electric and acoustic guitars and pianos to like keytars and all these weird wobbly noises. So if you like that kind of music, like Jefferson Starship, Jefferson Airplane, whichever, I don't know which version this was, but if you like that stuff, then that one segment alone is worth the time, because I do think that's probably a decent song to the people who are into that genre of music.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know. I completely agree, and I just think it's so different now too. I mean, you kind of go back to 78 and you go to present day with just how things are just so different. And I mean, I guess it really is more a matter of personal taste too, right?
Yes, it is. And there's probably people out there who genuinely enjoy this.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they exist. I mean, you can find somebody to like anything these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, especially with even with how bad it is, you can definitely find someone who enjoys it. I forgot to ask you too. What I was going to ask you was, is the Jefferson thing available somewhere, or is that you can't find that anywhere?
I mean, it's in this video that's on YouTube, but as far as like a separate music video, I'm sure somewhere for like Daily Motion might have it. The dregs of the internet, you'll find it somewhere. But
yeah,
whether or not I'm not sure if that song was made specifically for the show or not. Like, that could have just been a random Jefferson Starship song. And they're like, hey, we're going to put your song in a movie. You want to make a video for it? And they're like, okay.
Maybe. You never know. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it is so... It sticks out like a sore thumb in this thing.
It wasn't a Star Wars song.
No.
Let's just put it that way. It's not like they're singing about Han Solo destroying the Federation or Luke Skywalker swinging a lightsaber. It's just a song.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, no, it's just none of this stuff. Like, a lot of the songs, again, if you take it all the pointless crap in this movie, it would probably be around, like, fucking, I don't know, 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long, maybe max. But, yeah, it drags.
I mean, just the music videos all added up. Like, if you count the Leia song, the weird, like, no lyric song at the beginning, and then the B. Arthur and Jefferson Starship, it's like, that's 20 to 25 minutes right there.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then the cartoon's another 10, and then there's 12 minutes of them with no human dialogue in the beginning.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like you said, for the first 12 minutes.
None of the movie was necessary, but again, the fact that Art Carney is in something with Star Wars on the title, or B. Arthur for that matter, cracks me up.
Yeah, no, totally.
Like,
and,
I think Howard the Duck is more fun to watch than this.
It is.
But
having seen both now, I agree. Yeah.
I put them in the same category of, like, they're pretty bad, but, like, you might enjoy them if you're into bad stuff. But I think Howard the Duck is easier to justify liking than this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. At least Howard the Duck has some, it has some good moments, and it's an actual, like, movie, and I love Leah Thompson, so I'm just biased in that respect, but...
And that band is great. Like, the two songs that they play in that movie are awesome.
Yeah, dude, I was listening to it the other day. I mean, we watched and reviewed it like a month and a half ago, but I was listening to the Howard the Duck song at the end on YouTube a few days ago, so I can attest to that.
When you first get introduced to the band and they're like playing like an actual rock song at that concert, like, it's a good song.
Yeah.
Like, I was sitting there listening to it. I'm like, shit, this is like, I could see this on the radio.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, it's a genuinely good song. We already talked about it then, but I was surprised that Leah didn't have more of a career in music, because I thought she did really well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how some people can straddle both careers. Like, like Katie Seagal, and a lot of people forget that she was a musician for years before she became an actress.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, she actually was part of a famous girl group. Who did she sing backup for? I can't remember. She was like touring with a really big name for years, and then her acting career sort of took off, and that sort of sidelined that. I'm trying to look this up right now so I can find it, because it's actually really surprising. Let's see, music career. So she's worked as a backup vocalist for Bob Dylan, Etta James, and Tanya Tucker, and then she was with the girl group No Name. She's contributed to albums for... her group was the backup for Bette Midler.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
And then she had a bunch of other songs and stuff, but like by 1995, I think, roughly, her acting career, because of Married with Children, had become so big that she just sort of bowed out of the music industry. Plus, the music industry is really bad to women over the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
So once you're at a certain age, if you're not on the level of a Celine Dion, for example, your opportunities are going to dry up. So she was really smart to parlay that. But yeah, Leah Thompson may have been able to have a successful career, but her movie career was so big that I doubt she would have had time.
Yeah,
like,
no, totally.
Period of time where she was in everything.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I didn't even know that she was involved with music until I saw Howard the Duck, and we talked about it in that review, which we did a while ago, and that was, of the two, I would recommend you watch that before you watch this, but again, in honor of the holiday, maybe you could squeeze out 90 minutes for the Star Wars Holiday Special, but yeah, as we wind down here, do any closing thoughts on the Star Wars Holiday Special and its lasting legacy?
I mean, the lasting legacy is that it's terrible, and that and that there is no such thing as a perfect franchise.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I mean, it wasn't perfect anyway, but throwing this in there, like we said, is definitely... It's the lowest that Star Wars can possibly go. If they were to create anything worse than this, I'd be surprised. You mentioned the Ewok shit, which I'm sure is pretty bad, but I don't know if it'd be anything worse than this. This is pretty terrible. But yeah, this has been great, too. What'd you say?
Go watch an episode of the Ewoks cartoon. Not even an episode. Go watch the first 5 minutes of the first episode. It will numb your brain.
Oh God, I'll do that with hesitation, but I'll have to check that out. Like you said, the first 5 minutes maybe, and it's on Disney Plus, so at least it's accessible, and I won't be risking getting viruses on my computer from like downloading an episode off some like shady website. So I trust Disney Plus.
I honestly forgot. I forgot it even existed until Disney Plus was like, we're putting all this stuff up here. Here's the Ewok cartoon. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. There was an Ewok cartoon.
That's funny. Well, thanks a lot, Disney Plus, for reminding us how terrible that some of your content is. With Disney, anyway. Or with Star Wars. And this is not among them, but maybe not yet. I enjoyed the Lego one, but man, this was awful. But yeah, this has been great. What'd you say?
Here's a hypothetical for you. Would you rather watch an entire movie based around Chewbacca's family or Jar Jar Binks?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, if it's this, maybe Jar Jar Binks. I don't know. I guess it depends on how it's produced, because you can have an amazing Jar Jar Binks family movie, but if it's so bad that it's funny, then I might say Jar Jar Binks. But this isn't even so bad that it's funny. It's just like, what the fuck is this? So I'm honestly tempted to say Jar Jar Binks.
The only funny thing about this is what you say to make fun of it as you're watching it.
Yeah, like exactly.
That's why this is great, because it gives you a reason to mock a thing you probably love, which is Star Wars.
Yeah. 100%. And yeah, like I think all the other movies are subject to criticism, and they're fun. Some of them are fun to watch just to make fun of them, this one especially. But it's, again, like I said, it's easily accessible through YouTube, so you really have no excuse to not watch at least a little portion of it, of the Star Wars Holiday Special. But Chris, this has been great, man. Hopefully we can do more movie reviews and special reviews of either terrible shit or good shit or whatever before Loki comes back in a couple months. But yeah, this has been awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I love talking about terrible stuff.
Between Howard the Duck and Star Wars The Holiday Special, we got to figure out what's next.
I mean, the last several weeks of Raw, too.
And maybe we'll have to start doing a wrestling podcast, too, just to talk about how terrible that shit can be, too. Oh, my God.
Ugh.
That's rough. Well, yeah, thanks again, man. I appreciate this. I look forward to the next one.
Oh, me too.